It seems like in architecture and planning these days, things
Yeah.
just keep getting more and more complex.
Yeah, that's
The
nice.
demands are just always increasing, right?
For sure.
And to stay ahead of the curve and deliver those really innovative and efficient designs, it can feel like a really big task, to be honest.
It is a huge challenge.
It is.
It's not just about having a vision anymore.
Right.
You really need to have the right tools and the workflows to match
Exactly.
to actually bring that vision to life.
Yeah, especially with the kind of projects we're seeing now, they're getting more and more complex.
Absolutely.
And of course, sustainability is, at the forefront.
100%. Yeah.
So that's what we're diving into today, actually.
Okay, great.
We're going to be looking at how the latest advancements in architectural software, specifically the new ELITECAD architecture,
Right.
can really change the way we work.
Interesting.
So we're talking about streamlining those complex processes, the ones that just eat up our time,
Yeah.
and also unlocking new levels of design freedom and even making sustainability a natural part of our work, not something we just tack on at the end as an afterthought.
I see. So it's a more holistic approach.
Exactly.
That's really interesting.
And you know what I think is really fascinating? It's not just a bunch of random new features.
Right.
It's more like a fully integrated way of thinking about the whole architectural workflow.
I see. That makes sense.
Now, for those who are, interested in the origins of their software, ELITECAD is a made-in-Europe solution.
Oh, okay.
And it's from an independent company, which I think is worth noting.
Yeah, I agree.
Because in a market where we see so many huge corporations, that independence brings a fresh perspective, right?
For sure. And a different kind of responsiveness, I imagine.
Exactly.
It can be more agile, maybe.
And there's often a more direct line of communication with the developers, so...
Oh, it's interesting.
Yeah, they're closer to the real-world challenges that architects and planners face. So for you, our listener, whether you're working on a tricky renovation or trying to incorporate all these new sustainability metrics, or just, simply looking to be more efficient, our aim today is to really break down these advancements.
Okay, great.
And see what they actually mean for your everyday work.
Sounds good.
Let's start with the very beginning, okay?
Sure.
How do we even start working with existing buildings in the digital world?
Right.
It often begins with a survey. And these days, that usually means point clouds.
Yeah, absolutely.
So being able to use that data from existing structures is key, especially for renovations and extensions.
It saves so much time and effort compared to manually surveying a whole building.
Exactly.
Point clouds are way faster and more accurate for capturing that initial data.
Right, and it sounds like ELITECAD has introduced some new tools to work with that point cloud data more efficiently.
They have, yeah.
So tell me about this new interactive way of capturing building heights. I'm curious about that.
Well, the cool thing is how directly you can interact with the point cloud data.
Okay.
Instead of trying to figure out all those points and then manually inputting measurements, you could just click on the points that represent the different heights.
Oh, I see.
And the software just gets it.
It interprets the data.
Yeah, it creates the building structure for you.
That's smart.
And this saves a ton of time, and it also reduces the chance of errors.
Makes sense.
Which is a big deal.
Yeah.
Because those errors can really add up later on.
Oh, absolutely.
It changes the whole process of going from raw data to a digital model.
So it's faster, it's more accurate.
Yeah, exactly.
Now, what about when you have these massive point cloud data sets? Sometimes you just need to focus on one specific area.
Right, that's where the new clipping box comes in handy.
Okay.
It's like a window that you can position and resize within the point cloud. So you can isolate specific zones, like a single floor or just a section of the building.
Oh, that's helpful.
Yeah, it makes it much easier to navigate and work with the data.
So you're not overwhelmed by the whole scan.
Exactly. You can be more precise and focus on the details.
So it's a more streamlined way to model within an existing building.
Yeah, exactly.
You mentioned earlier about ELITECAD handling these large point cloud data sets.
Right.
And I know we're not getting into the specifics of file formats today,
Sure.
but have there been any improvements in just the usability of importing that data?
Definitely, yeah.
Okay, tell me more.
Well, they've introduced a batch import feature.
Okay.
So you can import multiple scans, maybe from different positions, and each one is placed as a separate object.
Oh, so it's more organized.
Exactly. Especially for larger projects, it makes it much easier to manage all the data.
And what about the actual performance?
They've made improvements there, too.
Okay, good.
The import speed is much faster now, so you're not waiting around as long.
That's always good.
And you can also cancel an import if you need to, which is helpful with those really big data sets.
Right.
But the main thing is that the system is more stable now. So even when you're working with billions of points, it should still be smooth and responsive.
So no more lag and frustration.
Hopefully not, no.
Okay, so we've got our existing building digitally captured.
Right.
Now let's move on to the actual design phase.
Okay, sure.
What are some of the big advancements that will change the way we create and iterate on our designs?
Well, one of the biggest changes is the new parameter management system.
Yeah.
It's called type control.
Type control. Interesting.
Yeah, it's a completely new interface.
What's so different about it?
Well, before, all the parameters for materials, wall constructions, everything was just in one big list,
Right.
which could be a real pain to navigate.
Especially on a complex project?
Exactly. You'd have hundreds of options.
Yeah.
But type control organizes everything in a hierarchical structure.
Oh, so it's more like folders.
Yeah, you can categorize and group parameters logically.
So for materials, I could have a folder for wood, then subfolders for different types of wood.
Exactly. And each set of parameters now has a graphical preview.
Oh, that's helpful.
Yeah, so you can see what a material looks like before you select it.
So no more guessing.
Exactly.
That's a really nice touch.
And they've also added search and filter functions.
Okay.
So you can find what you need quickly.
And what about those materials that you use all the time?
You can add those to your favorites.
Oh, okay, so it's like bookmarks.
Yeah. It saves you time in the long run.
Makes sense.
And for teams, there's a better rights management system.
Okay.
So you can distinguish between standard parameters and user-created ones.
Right, so you don't accidentally change something important.
Exactly. It keeps things organized and consistent.
I like that.
And they've also expanded the pre-installed content, especially for sustainable materials.
Oh, that's great to hear.
Yeah, it makes it easier to make those eco-friendly choices from the start.
Fantastic. Now let's talk about some specific design elements.
Sure.
Stairs, for example, can be tricky to model.
They can be, yeah.
So what's new with stair design in ELITECAD?
Well, they've improved the flexibility of modular stairs.
Okay.
You can create stairs with straight landings now.
Oh, that's good.
And the way you adjust the shape of landings has been simplified.
For all types of stairs?
Yeah, straight, curved, winder stairs, all of them.
Nice.
And they've also made it easier to manage locked values in the parameters.
So you don't mess up the design accidentally?
Exactly.
What about dormers? Have they been updated?
Yes, they have.
Okay, tell me about it.
There are new data sets for different dormer types, so it's quicker to create them.
Mm-hmm.
But the best thing is that you can change the dormer type after you've placed it.
Oh, really?
Yeah, without losing your dimensions and settings.
That's so much better than having to delete and start over.
I know, it's a huge time saver.
And it gives you more design freedom, too.
For sure.
Now, what about working with rotated coordinate systems?
That's much easier now, too.
Okay, good.
You can directly manipulate them using the properties bar and these on-screen handles.
Grippers, right.
Yeah, grippers.
I like this.
And the textures in rotated rooms adjust automatically.
So you don't have to fix them manually?
Nope, it's all done for you.
That's a small detail, but it makes a big difference.
Absolutely.
What other things should our listeners know about in terms of design flexibility?
Well, you can rotate space labels now,
Okay.
so they're easier to read in your drawings.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a new live selection preview.
What does that do?
It shows you which object you're about to select.
So you don't select the wrong thing by mistake.
Exactly.
Yeah. That's clever.
And you can now create 3D text from 2D text.
Oh, interesting.
So you could add logos to your facades, for example.
Nice.
And you can even create custom line types from text characters.
So it's all about giving you more control and flexibility?
Yeah, that's the main focus.
Okay, let's move on to documentation.
Okay.
What are the key improvements in that area?
Well, one big thing is the automatic documentation of multi-layer objects.
Tell me more about that.
It uses attribute labels to extract information like layer thicknesses and materials.
And it does this automatically?
Yeah, directly from the building components.
Wow, so no more manual labeling?
In theory, no.
That's a huge time saver.
It is, and it also reduces the risk of errors.
Right, because manual labeling can be prone to mistakes.
Exactly.
And you mentioned earlier about visually representing sustainability information.
Yes, they've introduced attribute colors for sustainability criteria.
Oh, that's interesting.
So you can visually see the environmental impact of different materials.
So like a color scale where green is good and red is bad.
Yeah, something like that.
That's a really intuitive way to show that information.
It is, and it makes those conversations about sustainability much easier.
So the plans themselves become a tool for communication.
Exactly.
What about these QR codes I've heard about?
Oh yeah, those are cool.
Tell me more.
You can generate QR codes that link to extra information.
What kind of information?
Anything really, like sustainability data, product specs, even contact info.
So you can scan the QR code with your phone and get all these
Yeah.
details? That's brilliant.
It turns your 2D plans into something much more interactive.
What other enhancements have they made to the documentation process?
Well, section lines are handled better now.
Okay.
You could display them across all floors,
Oh, that makes sense.
so you get a better understanding of the building as a whole.
Right, right.
And they've simplified the merging and splitting of hatches and dimension chains.
Okay.
And there are more options for controlling the detail level of 3D objects in your plans.
So you have more control over the visual clarity.
Yeah, exactly.
Now, let's talk specifically about sustainability.
Okay.
It seems like ELITECAD 17 is really making a push in that area.
Definitely. It's a big focus for them.
So the goal is to integrate sustainability information seamlessly into the model.
Yeah, that's the idea.
So you don't have to do all those manual calculations.
Exactly. It should all be there in the model.
Now, tell me about how ELITECAD 17 handles EPDs.
What are those again?
Environmental product declarations. They're like nutritional labels for building products.
Oh, right.
So they tell you about the environmental impact of a material.
Okay.
And ELITECAD 17 has a system for linking materials to their EPDs.
Oh, that's convenient.
Yeah, it makes it easy to track the environmental footprint of your design.
And a lot of the standard materials already have EPDs assigned to them.
Right, so the information is there automatically.
That's great.
And there's also a direct link to the Okobao.dot database.
I've heard of that.
It's a huge database of environmental information on building products.
Right.
So you have access to all that data right within ELITECAD.
That's awesome.
And then they have these new evaluation reports.
Tell me about those.
They use diagrams and charts to show things like material distribution and energy efficiency.
So they're more visual and easier to understand.
Exactly. It's not just a bunch of numbers.
That's helpful.
And they have a new report called a Building Resource Passport.
What's that?
It gives you an overview of the total environmental impact of your project.
Oh, I see.
And they also do detailed calculations for free objects and free forms now.
So everything is included in the analysis.
Right. Nothing is left out.
That's great.
Now, let's talk about teamwork and connectivity.
Okay.
How has ELITECAD 17 improved in those areas?
Well, you can now work on the model and views in parallel.
So one person can be modeling while another is working on the plans?
Exactly. It speeds up the whole process.
Makes sense.
And they made it easier to manage imported data.
Like IFC files and stuff.
Yeah, you can track them, relocate them, even delete them more easily.
That's always a pain, managing all those files.
I know, right?
And what about georeferencing?
They've improved that too.
Okay.
It's easier to manage data from different sources that have different coordinate systems.
So everything aligns correctly?
Yeah, it prevents errors and makes collaboration smoother.
What about compatibility with other BIM software?
ELITECAD supports the latest IFC 4.3 standard,
Oh, okay.
so data exchange is more reliable.
That's good to know.
And they've expanded the IFC export to include more base quantities.
So there's less risk of data loss?
Yeah. And they also have a plugin for Plan Radar now.
For cloud-based plan management.
Exactly.
It seems like they're really thinking about the whole ecosystem of tools.
They're trying to make things as connected as possible.
Now, let's talk about visualization.
Okay. Yeah.
What's new there?
Well, light sources are easier to manage now.
Ooh.
You can add them, edit them, adjust them more intuitively.
So it's easier to get the lighting right in your renderings.
Yeah, and you can link lights to objects.
So they move together.
Exactly. And they've added light animation effects.
Oh.
So your presentations can be more dynamic.
And they have pre-installed library elements with integrated lights.
Yeah, it's really easy to set up lighting now.
What about animations and camera path?
They've overhauled the camera path system.
Okay.
It's much easier to create and edit camera movements.
And you have more control over the speed and direction.
Yeah, it's all more precise and intuitive.
What about resolution options?
You have more flexibility there, too. You could even export in portrait format.
Oh, for social media.
Right.
And you can link 360-degree images to those QR codes.
Yeah, it adds another layer of immersion.
What about virtual reality?
They've made some big improvements there.
Okay, tell me more.
They're using OpenXR now.
What's that?
It's an industry standard for VR,
Okay.
so it supports a wider range of hardware.
Mm-hmm.
And the performance is better, too.
So it's smoother and more immersive.
Yeah, and they have a new room-scale VR mode.
Oh, wow.
You can physically walk around in the virtual space.
And your movements are tracked.
Yeah, it's like you're really there.
That's incredible.
They're the most natural way to experience a design in VR.
Now, we can't talk about the future without talking about AI.
True.
So what's ELITECAD doing in that area?
They're developing their own AI assistant.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's called Luna.
Luna, interesting.
It's designed to automate tasks and speed up workflows.
So it's like having an extra pair of hands.
Yeah, but it's more than that.
Okay.
It's also a source of information.
So it can answer your questions.
Yeah, it has a lot of knowledge about architecture and building technology.
Wow.
And they're focusing on data privacy.
Oh, that's good.
They're starting with a small group of users,
Okay.
and they want to offer an offline version eventually.
So you're not dependent on the cloud.
Right.
That's a smart approach.
It is.
Now, just briefly, what about terrain modeling and drainage?
They've made improvements there, too.
Okay, what kind of improvement?
You can import contour lines and point data more easily,
Mm-hmm.
and merging terrain data is better now.
Okay.
They have a new terrain inspector for managing modifications.
And for drainage.
The usability has been improved.
So it's easier to adjust things.
Yeah, and the editor is better now?
So it's more efficient overall.
Exactly.
So to wrap up, ELITECAD Architecture 17 has a lot to offer.
It does. It's a big step forward.
It's all about efficiency, design freedom, and sustainability. And it's all backed by this independent European company.
Yeah, that's a nice touch.
So for you, our listener, we hope this deep dive has been helpful.
It was a lot of information.
It was.
That hopefully is valuable.
I think so.
Yeah.
And we hope it's given you some ideas about how to improve your own planning process.
And maybe be a little bit more sustainable.
Exactly.
It makes you think about how technology is changing the way we design buildings.
It really does.
Our role as architects is constantly evolving.
That's true.
It's an exciting time to be in this field.
It is.
There's so much potential.
Definitely.
I'm curious to see what the future holds.
Me too.
It's going to be interesting, that's for sure.
Absolutely. And if you want to learn more about ELITECAD Architecture 17, we encourage you to check out their website.
Good idea.
Or maybe even get in touch for a demo.
Yeah, that's a good way to see it in action.
Exactly.
Thanks for having me on the show.
Oh, thanks for joining us.
It was a pleasure.
It was great to have you, and thanks to all of our listeners for tuning in.
Yeah, thanks everyone.
We'll see you next time.
See you later.